Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I know it's been a little bit, but we've been really busy. We went out camping out in Delaware last weekend. It was the time that the heavy smoke and smog from the forest fires came down through New Jersey, Delaware area. So it was kind of an interesting weekend. A lot of heavy smoke. I'm getting over a sinus thing, so that really did not help it. So if you see me sniffle or cough, like I said, I'm still getting over it. I'll cough probably periodically through this video. We'll just move forward through it. Um, there you go. So we had fun camping. Spent some time with some of the friends. Great time. Got to see the beach. We were really close to the beach out in Delaware. Um, this last couple of days, we've been kind of taking it easy. Today's Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to all you fathers out there. I myself am a father. I've gotten to talk to one of my children today. The other one, hopefully, we'll talk to a little bit later this evening. The older one of my kids is actually going to be up here next weekend. So he's going to help do the powder coating on the frame underneath the big rig. And you see some of the other videos where we've been assembling the big rig chassis, all new from the ground up. So we've got the shell in here today, kind of polishing it up, doing some touch up on it. We're going to get this out of the way. We're going to get the Jeep out of the garage next weekend. We're going to clean up like half the garage. And my son's going to bring in his powder coating equipment, some big UV lights, and some other stuff to do the powder coating. So the Jeep, real quickly, you can see it's sitting over there. It still doesn't run. We haven't really had a lot of time to work on it. We've been trying to finish up some of the other projects. As you can see, the engine is still sitting right here. We've got to take it to the machine shop. But a lot of things going on right now. But back to the big rig. So put your book on. So, again, pardon me. The fiberglass shell on this particular truck has gotten bumped into a few things. And you can see literally right here in the front, it's hit something down underneath where you can't see on the camera. It's got some scarring on the front bumper and whatnot, and then periodically, around the truck, it's got some dents and scrapes and whatnot. So a lot of the trucks need some tender loving care as far as fiberglass, gel coat, that sort of thing. So I went to look at getting the fiberglass and the gel coat redone, and it doesn't need the full fiberglass, mostly just the top coat, the gel coat. Really needs touch up, and in this case it was actually pitted pretty badly. Well, the gel coat itself is like 45 to 50 bucks for like a half quart. The hardener was $17. The colorant, because it only comes in white, was another $14 to make it red. And it was going to cost me like 70 something dollars just to patch small pieces here and there. And I was thinking, well, maybe there's a cheaper way to do it. And I found something that I thought was going to work. So I used some two-part epoxy on some other projects around here, and it dries hard and white, just like a gel coat would without, mixing in the fiberglass. So I actually have a little bit of it still over here where we mixed it up for the other project, and you can see it dries hard, white, and we're like, hey, we'll just use this white stuff, mix in some red stuff into it, use that, and be a lot cheaper because I already had it on hand. Well, and initially it looked like it worked. We mixed it all up. It looked like it was going to harden up like a gel coat would. We put it in here, smoothed it out as best as we could while it was still wet, and then let it dry. And initially, it looked good. And we thought, oh, this is going to be a lot cheaper way to do this. Well, I learned a little bit about fiberglasses, two-part epoxies, resins, that sort of thing. And while they look very similar, they work very similar, there's a lot of different chemicals that go into it. And I don't have all the chemical names here in front of me. If you're really interested, I can go dig them up. But the short version is the chemicals that are in the two-part epoxy don't necessarily work well with the chemicals that are in fiberglass, epoxy, gel coat resins. So when we put it on here and it started to dry, it turned rubbery, and it didn't dry hard, it dried flexible. So I actually have a piece of it here, and you can see it's rubbery like RTV sealant. And I don't know if you can see it. I'll put it on camera here a little bit. It's kind of aerated like foam. I know it's not quite in focus, but you can see all the bubbles and stuff. So this particular truck, it's got a lot of patchy air bubbles that look like it was filled in with foam, because essentially that's what it turned into. So, excuse me, we're going to have to find a different way of patching it up. But from a distance, at least it looks red instead of having the amber fiberglass, scar looking underneath it. So I think right now I'm just going to let it dry a little bit more and paint over it, and let the paint kind of seal it a little bit and polish it out until we can get a new way of doing it. I'd really like to replace a lot of these shells, because most of these fiberglass shells for these trucks are about 20 years old. And the amount of times that we've had to load them onto the truck, unload them, drive them through a parade, load them back on the truck, take them back to the shrine, unload them, push them into the garage, move them around the garage, and put them back. They get a lot of what a buddy of mine who's a pilot calls hanger rash. Basically, anything you move it around enough, it's going to get scraped, dents, whatever. Well, these things suffer a lot of the same thing. You start looking at them closely enough, there's a lot of scratches, dents, spider webbing in the fiberglass. And I'd love to have most of them replaced, and I'm hoping maybe on 1 or 2 a year we can get replaced, and given enough time we'll end up replacing all of them, but we'll see. But I thought that was kind of interesting to kind of tell you guys about that. I thought I'd found a way to cheaply put in an epoxy in here, and it looked like it was going to work. The epoxy that I used dries hard. I'm like, oh, it dries hard, we'll just put some red tint into it and it'll be perfect. And no, it ended up turning it into foam, which is weird. Anyway, so what you can't see, and it's right below you on camera, and I don't have you on a tilt axis, is where the headlights go in these particular trucks. The old headlights were literally used fiberglass epoxy was stuck on the back of the light and then shoved around the light to seal it into the hole. And most of them didn't work, and the ones that did work, they're a heavy duty halogen type bulb. They get hot, but more importantly, they are very, very energy intensive. They drain a lot of the batteries very quickly, so we typically don't run the lights. But I got these LED flasher lights, so I'm going to have to wire them all up, but that's not a big deal. So these are from Amazon. They're like 20 bucks for a 10 pack of them, and they flash in a bunch of different patterns. It's white and amber, and you can kind of tell what color they are, but I can't on camera. So one side will flash, then the other will flash. But what they have, you see, there's 3 wires here. I'll put them somewhere you can see them. There we go. And of course, red and black, positive and negative. But this yellow one here, when you touch it to the same source that the positive is on, you can change the pattern that the lights are flashing. And eventually what I'm going to do in the truck is wire these up so that as we're driving in the parade, we can hit a button and change the pattern on them. So right now, these are going to be put in the space where the headlight is, because they're almost exactly the same size as the headlight. And then I'll probably put 2 vertically on the side of the body, somewhere like probably behind the smokestack or something like that. And then across the top of the truck, between the windshield and that open area up there, we're going to put these LED lights. Before, we had amber incandescent bulbs up there, and they were on a really tall square housing, and they were really fragile. They tend to break all the time, and they match some of the lights on the rest of the trucks. On the back ones, it's the same light but red. On the trailers, they have both red and amber, but they all get broken because they literally stand up 1.5 inches off the body or off the back of the truck or whatever. So anytime anything bumps into it, it breaks the lens off, smashes the bulbs, breaks the little tabs that hold the lenses. Well, these solid state surface mount, so very little of this is going to stick up above the body, and they're hard. They're LED hard plastic, so if you run into them, it's not necessarily going to break them, and they're really bright. So we're going to wire these up to a switch in there, so when you turn the switch on, all the lights will come on, and they'll actually be a lot more visible, get a lot more attention, we hope. A lot of trucks have had lights on them for years, but most of the lights don't work. So we're going to put those lights on. And the other thing that I got, I'm going to reach just off camera. Hang on one second. Okay, now I'm back. So our buddy Matt, who's been doing a lot of the welding, you've seen him a couple of times, he got a hold of batteries for me. So we have a bunch of these batteries that we're going to wire into the trucks. So these are 12 volt, typical, lead acid batteries, but they're fairly small. And instead of putting a big car battery in there, we can take one of these batteries in there, wire these lights up to it, because we don't have to run a starter. We don't have to run, any big generators or anything like that. The only thing that's going to be running off of these batteries is a handful of LED lights, and they'll run, probably days on a battery like this that's fully charged. So he got enough of them for all of the trucks. Most of them are not charged. I have charged this one. Um, um, I'm going to charge each of them as I can. They make the trucks a lot lighter because some of the trucks that we run up there have a full-size car battery. One of them actually has a heavy-duty marine deep cycle battery that sits right on the front axle and makes it very difficult to actually see what's going on, to actually turn the thing. It's very heavy on the steering wheel. I'm going to try to do something on my lap while I'm talking to you guys. So, in theory, we're going to put these batteries in there, be a lot lighter. There we go. See if I can hold this, because I wanted to show you what these got. There we go. Here's what these look like. So that's going to get a lot more attention when we're driving in the parades. And, these things will run on this battery for a long time. And then, we can change the pattern, but I'm not going to change the pattern while I'm trying to talk to you. I only got two hands, and they're both occupied at the moment. So, these get a lot more attention. Batteries for free. Can't beat that. Thanks again, Matt. And hopefully we'll get this truck powder coated and then assembled, because my goal is 4th of July, we'll have this in a parade. I'm really hoping we can get it in the 2nd of July parade, but I'm not going to push it. I want it done. I want it done right. It's going to really depend on how the powder coating goes next weekend. But I'd love to have it in the 4th of July parade. I definitely want to have it by the 8th of July, because the 8th of July is our unit picnic. We're going to have a lot of the friends and family, interested people, a lot of kids out there, and we want to have the new truck ready to show it off and get a lot of attention for it. We hope. So, real quickly with the other motor, we haven't done anything at all. Rich says he wants to be here to do a lot of the building. He wants to go to the machine shop with me when we have the conversation about the work that needs to be done with it. So that's why we haven't touched it, which is why the Jeep isn't running. I really want to get the Jeep running, but I don't want to get in a hurry in rebuilding this motor. I want it done right. I want it done, correctly. I don't want to take any shortcuts. So we're trying to get the big rig cart done and out of here, free up some of our time, free up some of our space. Once the big rig's out of here, then we can focus on the Jeep engine and the ambulance. I'm looking around real quickly to see if I have it. So with the ambulance, we had a leak last year in one of the coolant lines, and we didn't really talk about it on camera. We had made a brief reference to it. I'm going to try to get some video Tuesday when the guys are here, baby. So the ambulance has a heater up front like a normal truck does, and it has a heater unit in the back because it's got the ambulance body, so it's got a heater unit, it has AC. Well, the Freon for the AC and the coolant lines for the heat run off the same stuff that up front does. So it's got really long lines that take coolant from the engine up front. There's a bypass midway, and then it goes down to two cutoff valves, and then it goes up into the rear heater core. So there's hard lines that are plumbed underneath the truck, or at least there were. One of them started leaking when we were doing the fuel pump process. So when we were replacing the fuel pump, we were running fuel lines, we noticed it was leaking. So what we ended up doing is putting in a bypass underneath the doghouse to just circulate the coolant right back to the front of the truck, because we weren't running the heater in the back and it wasn't a critical issue. So we had a little bit of time and we figured, well, let's take a look at it. Well, we got the hard lines out, and they were a pain because they're like, twisted and turning. They're like brake lines but bigger. over the frame, under the frame, behind, bracket, around this, whatever. So they're actually sitting outside, um, out of the way. Found out one of the lines was literally broken in half. It had rested where the bracket holds it up against the frame. Just there's no way to repair it. I was hoping it was like a pinhole leak that I could, solder it or repair it, something like that. No, it is literally broken in half. I'm like, well, we'll replace it with um, rubber line because we don't use it a lot and it's not a high pressure system. So we went and got some rubber line and started plumbing that in. And when plumbing that in, we found that there's those two cutoff valves that cut it off right there, which is kind of weird to me because you can cut it off there, but there's no return between the two like you would have on like a hot water heater when you winterize it in an RV. You'd have two valves you turn off, and then you have a bypass between them that you open so that coolant can circulate. Well, in the ambulance, it doesn't do that. It's literally two lines that you cut off, and that's it. So it kind of creates this dead space of fluid that's not doing anything. Excuse me. So anyway, we got one of those valves to work. They were both rusted really bad, and we got it to open and close, and it seems to be somewhat serviceable. But the other one we found had literally rusted through where the tube connects to it. So the little flange that the tube goes over was rusted beyond belief and had basically corroded in half. So I've got to get two new cutoff valves. So right now the ambulance technically isn't drivable. I could make it drivable in like 5 minutes by hooking the bypass back together. But I don't want to do that. I want to hook the line up like it's supposed to be. So I have new line. I just need to go get the cutoff valves. I told myself I was going to do that, yesterday or today. Ended up going to the glass store yesterday, and today's Father's Day, so I got lazy, and I've just been watching movies and playing video games, and of course, talking to you guys. Tomorrow, got the day off. I got some people coming over to talk about stained glass and fused glass and stuff like that. A friend of mine has said she's got an interest in learning about it, so she's going to come over and talk about that. I don't know if a lot of you guys who don't know me personally know I also do stained glass work, and I create and sell pieces of stained glass. I created a stained glass sign for my lodge. We also do fused glass. We make fused glass bowls. We do fused glass decorative pieces for like Halloween and Christmas. I do etched glass work as well. I've done quite a bit of that. So I like to stay a little bit busy. So this video is getting a little bit long, but I just wanted to keep in touch with you guys. Say hi, happy Father's Day again, and we will talk to you guys later. And I don't think my little button is working today, so we'll do it the hard way.